Hello and welcome to FinTech Insider Insights. I'm David Breer, CEO at 11FS. Since its launch many moons ago in 2015, the online bank Monzo has grown from strength to strength and recently announced a valuation of $5 billion following an investment led by Alphabet's independent fund. Leading the charge is TS Anil, appointed as the CEO back in 2020. TS led the bank through the COVID pandemic, an economic crisis, and somehow come out on the other side bigger and better than ever. So I wanted to find out a little bit more about Monzo, their plans, and who better to talk to than the man himself, TS Anil. Welcome to the show, TS. How are you doing?
Great to be here. It's a lovely day outside, so I'm doing great.
It's a funny one. I said to you before the show, me and you have sort of talked about various different things, and I've only just realized that I didn't know what TS stood for. So, like, cool nickname vibes, you know, but how's things going? How's the business?
The business is in great shape, never been stronger, never been even more excited and pointed at the mission and the big ambition that we have for Monzo. So yeah, we're in a great place.
Very good, and we'll get into that a little bit more as we go in terms of the vision, the mission, the way you guys are really trying to get to. But firstly, I guess congratulations on the investment. It's I never quite like the hey, we've raised a load of money without asking, so what are you going to do with it? Like, but does the investment change the strategy, or is it more of a continuation of where you want to get to?
What the investment changes, if anything, is that we turbocharge even more in pursuit of the huge mission that we have and the big ambition that we have for this company. You know, David, you've been following our story for a while. We've always been a deeply mission-oriented company, and that mission is to make money work for everyone. And that idea that we can build a single place where customers meet all of their money needs is what powers us. And the ambition associated with that is to serve tens of millions and eventually hundreds of millions of customers, both individuals and small businesses, and help them manage their money. So this fundraise is on the back of the execution that we've done as a team over the last few years, and the fact that we're being recognized as separating from the rest of the pack and really building a company that's an outlier of a company. And so which is why the capital raise is really exciting for us. And it also means that we can turbocharge even more, build even more products, serve even more customers on that journey.
Yeah. It's interesting, isn't it, when you used to sort of describe that as so what are we going to do? It's like, we're going to do more. It's like the opportunity sort of opens up in front of you. But I guess the context of sort of where Monzo's come from in that way, I mean, often sort of, it's been interesting to sort of see this from speaking to a lot of banks and speaking to a lot of organizations, about you, not you particularly, that'd be weird, but Monzo as an organization, it's been an interesting transition over the years because I often sort of said Monzo at the beginning was a sort of fun money for adults. That was the beachheads. And actually, the banks have been quite skeptical. They'll never get a license, or they'll know, what are you, 9 million customers in now? People are starting to worry a little bit more, So how have you seen that transition, the product developing and shaping? And I mean, have you seen the industry sort of change its perspectives with you guys as well over that time?
Sure. I mean, it's always fun to prove the naysayers wrong, right? And, we get described variously as a challenger bank. And I think, the incumbent industry should consider themselves challenged. And we're doing it at scale. So our strategy, what we've been about, has never changed. It is this idea of meeting all of our customers' money needs in a single place. And in doing so, transform banking forever. And we're setting the tone for the rest of the industry, right? When you see a feature of ours that gets copied, or you see someone making the banking experience just a little bit friendlier, that proves to us that our strategy is working, and we're raising the standards for the whole industry. And that's exciting, right? Because what we want to do is actually transform banking and the way it's done and how people relate with their money. And we will do that by building Monzo out to greater and greater scale. And the getting there is an interesting journey. To your point about, how we started and how we've grown since then. In some ways, any company goes through that journey as it grows from being an early stage little dream to a startup, to a scale up, and to greater and greater success. And along that journey, it's important to keep preserving the things that truly define you, the best bits of you, and alongside building new muscles that you need with greater success, greater scales as you serve more customers. And we have been on that journey. So our story is one of never letting the vision, the mission, the dream get diluted, but adding so much more to that, right? Adding so much more to that so that we can actually build a successful company at scale.
Yeah. And I guess as you've added more things to that, over the time that you've been here and previous as well, I mean, going from essentially in a very short period of time, you've gone from being a prepaid card to, I mean, investments and the announcements that you've got around all of the other things that you're doing with insurance and pensions, and that complexity is much greater than it was even 2 or 3 years ago. So is this all directionally under that umbrella of the same strategy that, back when you joined in 2020?
For sure, it's that same mission. So what we want to do is, in that single place that is the Monzo app, we want to help customers budget and borrow and spend and save and invest and insure, everything to do with their money. The idea being that we want people to use Monzo to get the information, the transparency, the control, help them make better decisions with their money, and help them move along towards their financial goals in a better and smarter way. So investments was always part of that roadmap in that light, and everything that's coming is building out that end state. And if you think about it, so investments is a great example, right? We knew that we wanted to put a product in the hands of our customers that helped them make long-term investment decisions, right? Not flash in the pan, speculative stuff, but actually build great long-term investing habits. And when we were building out that product, like everything that we do, we build our products very close to our customers. I'd love to talk to you about that some more, but fundamentally this idea that we learn from our customers, right? Learn what resonates for them, learn what gives them anxiety, how do they process information, what are the barriers that they perceive that stop them from making great decisions. So with investments, it was interesting, right? The big 2 barriers that we learned customers had was, one, that they were spooked by the industry. They didn't understand how to get started, right? Everywhere they looked, they were facing brick walls of terms and conditions and not the insights and the education to help them actually get started. So that was the first thing, education. The second was that customers felt that they need a lot of money to get started, right? It's not for me because I don't have so much money, was the other insight. So we built the product, learning from our customers, and built it to solve both of those problems, right? So you can get started investing in Monzo by investing only £1 and as often as you can, as often as you want, right? So we lowered that threshold and that barrier to entry, but also education, right? Making it simple for people to understand long-term investing, right? Communicating it to them in words that they understand, that is their language. And what's exciting to me with the early results of the product, it's only been a few months that it's been in the market, is the number of customers that engage with all of the education all the way through to the end. And the early stats are really staggering, right? 1/3 of the customers who are signing up for investments have never invested before. And when you look at women, that number is 45% of the women investing have never invested before, right? And it's well documented that women are the most diffident when it comes to investing, right? For all of those reasons. So it's heartening that we're actually giving them the tools to actually get started, and that's why it's exciting. And that's, so investments is one product. We've just gotten started with that. We will expand that space, as you described, with more asset classes, more different ways to invest for the long term. But it's just one of those many things that we're building out so that in the future, a customer knows that everything money happens inside of Monzo, and using Monzo puts them further ahead relative to the financial goals than not having Monzo in their lives.
Yeah, it's a strange. I mean, you sort of often the most sensible things when you say them out loud sound like obvious things, right? But the point that you sort of say about building it with them rather than for them. You worked in other financial services organizations, as have I, and often people sort of have a presumption that they know the customer because I've worked in this for 20 years and blah, 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 but actually the reality of the day-to-day lives of people are fundamentally different than they were, maybe when they got into banking, right? So that as a connectivity piece, even from the early stages of Monzo was it felt like a community. It was always a community, right? So that is still part of what you do on a day-to-day basis?
It's absolutely at the heart of how we do everything, right? This idea that it's not even about, we don't even think about it really as user research or knowing our customers, all of those for sure. But this is really about the intimacy that we have with our customers. And across touch points, we're always learning how customers use the product, what's missing in their lives, what problems they need to solve. So, you mentioned the community. We have 40,000 registered users on the Monzo, community website. And they are constantly giving us feedback, right? And it's both exciting when they like something we've built, and it's humbling when they say, "Oh, this could be better." But that's how we learn. That's how we constantly improve the product. So there's that. Our social media channels, right? We don't use them just to broadcast, right? Of course, we share Monzo information there, but it's about opening up a conversation with our customers, and some of it is really entertaining as well, right? So we do that, and alongside we have this always-on user research where we're constantly learning how people use the product, right? How are they actually processing the information that we're putting out there? How do we make sure that we communicate that information in the customer's language? Because ultimately, the idea here is that we want the customer to feel in control. And to do that, right, you have to build that bridge with our customers so that they get the product, they understand it, and we keep raising the bar on ourselves.
Yeah. It's interesting, isn't it, that customer engagement, again, I've seen that been done really badly, as in, do you like this one or this one? And it's like, I don't care, just give me my £20 of Amazon vouchers and let me go away, So, but the community that you've created and the sort of curation of that feels they're doing it for a passion of changing the industry, essentially. So, but I guess back to that point on, more women are investing and, first-time investors. Why do you think that is? Is that a trust thing? As in, do you think it is because you've created a brand that people are essentially trust, that people are more willing to go with you to make those things happen?
For sure, right? And we work hard to earn that trust and keep that trust every day of the week, David. The incumbent banking industry is disproportionately built off of a business model that leverages one or more of three things: customer ignorance, that they don't really understand how the product works, and the real terms and conditions sit behind walls of fine print.
Yeah.
Customer vulnerability, large numbers of customers either borrowing more than they should or at prices more than they should, and so on and so forth, customer vulnerability. Or the third, which is customer inertia, where a customer might find it just too hard to make a change, and the industry business model is built around that. Right? We have set out to change all of that. It's important to us that we make money when our customers do things that are good for them. Right? It's important to us that we communicate with our customers in a way that they truly understand the product. Right? And it's not as though we're trying to get to a place where playing on some arbitrage of what's good for Monzo but not great for customers. Right? The idea of being mission-oriented, as warm and fuzzy as it sounds, is truly about building products that solve problems for customers, pricing it in a way that is fair and transparent, and a customer knows exactly how and when he or she will have to pay us. And it's about helping them understand, helping them make decisions that are better for them. So when you hold yourselves to that standard every day of the week, what you end up creating as a consequence of that is that trust with customers. So I would hope that as you're saying, people are coming to Monzo, willing to bank with Monzo, save with Monzo, invest with Monzo, because they trust us. They trust us knowing that we've got their best interests at heart, and we're building tools and features that help them understand that and make good choices.
Yeah. And it's an interesting one, isn't it? I mean, trust is you did really well, by the way. Like every time I make there's 3 points, I always forget the third one. So I'm impressed that you managed to remember all three of them at the same time. But the thing with trust is quite interesting, is like the big incumbent organizations, I think customers trust them to just not disappear, but they don't really necessarily trust their intentions to do the right thing. Whereas actually, I think from a lot of research we've done and different things that people have said, it feels like people trust your intentions as an organization, which inherently an organization is made up of people, so they trust you as people. So like, does that come with to your point on the feedback from customers? If something's not as good as it could be, then you hear about it really quickly. Does that trust sort of weigh heavy to a certain degree?
No, I wouldn't think of it as weighing heavy. I think of it as a responsibility, but also as empowering, right? Because when we are trusted, we feel empowered to solve more problems for the customer, right? We feel it puts more wind in our sails about what we're looking to do. So I don't think of it as heavy at all, and it just gives us more energy to solve the problems that we want to solve. And you mentioned this point about when people think about the old traditional incumbent banks, they trust them to be around for a while. That's a non-trivial part of what we're building out as well. It's important to us that we do all of the things that make Monzo an incredibly well-run, well-regulated, well-controlled bank as well, right? Because ultimately we want people to trust us with their money. It means you do everything right. You build an amazing tech stack, put great products in the hands of customers that delight with design and experience, and you do everything that makes Monzo safe, secure, sustainable for the long term. And you don't solve just a piece of it and hope like hell that everything else sort of just works out magically.
Yeah. You mentioned a second ago, and I picked up on it. You said hundreds of millions of people, or 100 million people. That's definitely more people than there are in the UK. Last time I checked. So with the funding, I mean, obviously US is a big part, and obviously previously you joined Monzo, didn't you, to run the US side of things? How big a part do you think the US will play in the next 90 million customers, or however many you want to get to off the top of where you are?
So here's the honest answer. We think we're just scratching the surface in the UK. We think the UK has enormous opportunities. So we have 9 million individuals who bank with us and 400,000 small businesses that bank with us. And that number is growing rapidly. But we think we're still just getting started in the UK. So tens of millions of more customers on individuals and businesses, many, many more products, right? To the point that I was saying the Financial Control Center means many more products that we're building out, and our roadmap has never been more exciting. So I think that's the first and most important port of call, right? Which is we think the UK will be significantly bigger in numbers of customers, in the products we serve them, the revenues and the profitability and everything else that comes on the back of that. But the ambition is global. Right? The ambition does not stop at the UK border. And we're building out strategies for Europe and the US, and over time they will be an increasing part of our business. But I do want to say that the UK does feel like we're just getting started.
Yeah, it's amazing. And you mentioned a few times the sort of control center. I guess this is a financial system, isn't it? As you say, Monzo's it's not a list of products. It's a system to manage people's lives. That problem isn't just here, as you say. That's everywhere around the world, isn't it? There are places that are far less well banked than the UK, but actually it feels like you've got we all say digital banking is 1% finished, but it feels like you've got a long way ahead of you to complete the mission, right?
Absolutely. Like when I look around the world, and I've been lucky enough that I've gotten to live and work in different parts of the world, every part of the world needs a Monzo, right? This idea exactly as you're saying, which is this is not just a few products, but that it all comes together in a way that is best for the customer. Most parts of the world don't have that product yet, right? So we sense that opportunity is very, very real. But with great ambition must go great discipline as well, right? And to be able to actually execute against it, because otherwise it's a series of pipe dreams, right? So building it out for real scale, is what we're about, right? So we would be disciplined with how we invest, but not being shy at all to be incredibly ambitious at the same time.
Yeah, and I guess that to the point that you made earlier on around sort of the success here has been about community and structure and how you built all those things out. Repeating that is difficult. Again, if this was easy, everybody'd be doing it, right? So do you see that model being the same way you would enter into other geographies, because the US ain't a small place, right? In terms of, as it's so actually each state and that closeness with your customers, the way in which you would approach it, that's a pretty major task, isn't it?
For sure, David. I mean, difficult doesn't faze us, right? We're here, right, at the size and scale that we're at because we've solved difficult problems, because we've confronted them, we've worked hard to actually intermediate that complexity and build great products for our customers. So difficult doesn't faze us. And as you're saying, if it was easy, right, it would have been solved already. So of course it's going to be difficult, but I think more than difficult, I think it's also going to be different, right? We acknowledge the fact that replicating our UK story in country after country is not, it's going to be different, right? Because the time and place associated with when we're launching our businesses across in any new market is different than the condition that we had in the UK. But all of that said, some universal truths remain. What Monzo stands for remains, right? The values and the ways in which we build products with our customers will remain, which absolutely transcends borders. And whether that looks like what the early days of launching the product in Shoreditch looked like, or takes a different form, isn't the point. It's the idea that we will still build with this intimacy with our customers will be it's a core value. The idea that most customers anywhere in the world feel dissatisfied with the way the incumbents serve them is real. So the needs are real. And it's against that backdrop that we're going to be building all of our businesses.
Yeah, and I guess, I mean, look, there's rumors swirling around things like IPOs and all different types of things. And and sort of touching on, as investors grow and there's more people sort of involved, how are you allowing that focus, I guess? How are you sort of keeping that North Star the same thing amongst all of that noise?
Yeah, look, it's always been a part of the noise, right? We've always been a company that has interested people, intrigued people. So people have always sort of speculated and talked about us. And in some senses, that just goes with the territory of being ambitious and building something that's loved. But our true north has not changed, right? What we think about as the mission, what we think about how that translates into the products we will build, how that translates into how we execute against it, none of those things has changed. And, to your point about new investors and so on, they're coming along because that's what they value as well.
Sure.
They value that ambition, and they value the fact that we've demonstrated that we're going to execute against it as well. We've demonstrated that we can, in the toughest of times, we will continue to build out an amazing company, right? And, I say this a lot, which is tough times separate the good companies from the great. And we're definitely playing to be a great company, right? And that idea that we're ambitious excites them, and the idea that we're focused on how we get there, executing with the best of our capabilities, bringing the best of technology and banking together against that, is why they're coming on. So while there's noise, there will always be some speculation and noise out there, but it doesn't change anything about what we're really setting out to do.
Yeah, it's an interesting pressure, isn't it? I've seen. And I'm not going to pressure you on the IPO. You're a very good speaker, so I know you dance around it and not give me a proper answer. So I won't do that. But the idea that shareholders or stakeholders or broader become a different noise for governance within CEOs of global banks, they feel that pressure to. It's going to be an interesting one and an interesting challenge over the growth period to start balancing those things. But it feels like something you're excited about that challenge, right?
Absolutely. At any point in time, building a great company is about managing a set of different stakeholders who have different lenses with which they view you. And, the companies that succeed at scale succeed because they can manage those stakeholders. So, of course, in the journey from where we are today to eventually being a public company, and, I'm not shy to say we've always said we'll make a great public company one day. Stakeholders will change and morph, and there will be new stakeholders to the party. But that's fine. We hold ourselves to incredibly high standards. And if anything, those expectations propel us as a company to do more and better.
Very good. All right, we're going to take a little bit of a quick break. And after the break, we'll hear a little bit more about TS's background and why join Monzo in the first place. Back with you very shortly. All right, folks, welcome back to FinTech Insider Insights, where I'm in a pretty interesting conversation with Monzo CEO TS Anil. TS, you've had lots of experience before Monzo. Like you've been in financial services for well over 25 years, right? You've seen a lot of change, I guess, over that period of time. What attracted you to join Monzo? Other than it's an interesting one, isn't it? Building that winning team and joining something that's got so much momentum. How did that interview process go in the first place?
Gosh, when you put it like that, it does sound like a long, lots of years of experience before Monzo.
I meant it purely positively rather than negatively. This wasn't like a cloaked, rolled the joke,
I'm going to take your word for it. Yeah. But here's the thing. So I got to do financial services in different forms around the world. But through it all, David, there was this massive longing and an unscratched itch that I had, which was about leveraging the technology of our times to transform banking. And we tried. And I worked for some great companies. We tried, but it is incredibly hard for incumbents to ever change the industry that they're a part of, right? All the well understood reasons of legacy technology stacks, legacy business models to protect, legacy mindset and talent, all of those make it near impossible, and incumbents rarely transform their industries. So that had remained an unscratched itch for me. So the conversation with Monzo happened serendipitously. One of the VCs that was investing in Monzo is someone that I knew while I was living in California. And, just a random introduction led to a series of conversations. But for me, the penny dropped very early that this was a company that I was incredibly turned on by. This idea of the mission was not a poster in the office, right? It was a deeply held belief, deep in the DNA of a company across all levels in the company. So however junior or senior the person I was speaking to was, there was that thing which was lighting them up, right? Which was amazing for me to behold. The second thing that was really important to me was that it felt like Monzo had already solved some interesting problems, right? Built a tech stack that was second to none, built an early product, the migration from the debit card to the current account, which had captured the imagination of customers, had built a tone of voice and a brand that was clearly resonating with customers. So lots of stuff had been done. The ambition was big, but what was exciting to me personally was this was not about coming and running a place, it was about actually building it. And it was exciting to me that, I was going to get this opportunity to stand on the shoulders of giants, the founding team that had built so much already, but so much needed to be done, right? And looking ahead at the summit of the ambition was incredibly exciting. So this idea of taking something that was magical and then really converting it into a rocket ship with a really exciting team of people was what did it for me.
Yeah, I mean, you seem like a very confident person, but was it a bit intimidating? I mean, I remember my first job in London, I was terrified. I thought everybody was going to be the smartest people in the world type thing. But like, was it a bit intimidating given, Monzo's sort of the poster child for challenger banks everywhere?
So, the transition happened right during COVID, so the backdrop was the whole world had been upended anyways, right? And we had so much to get done that hand on heart, there wasn't enough time to actually sort of introspect and feel any of those things because we just had to get on and do stuff.
How was that time? Because I joke to people, I joined financial services, I joined banking in 2008, and it's like, wow, like you say, there was a learning curve that was just like, you just got to get in and get stuff done. But 2020 was weird, wasn't it?
It was insane, right? And I think we've talked about this. So I was living in California, the world was locked down, and I was working UK hours sitting in California, which was like an 8-hour difference. I was starting my day at, 2 or 3 every single morning. I was already playing catch up when I started at that hour. And it was a very challenging time. It was a challenging time for all of us in our personal lives and all the implications of lockdown. It was a challenging time for our customers, right? Both individuals and businesses. And it was a challenging time for Monzo, the life stage that we were at, where we'd grown rapidly. A lot needed to be done. So it was in the space of all of that. And, I said this to you before as well. I think tough times really separate the great from everybody else. And I think we came through that by really taking on every difficult problem, not shying away from putting our arms around all of what needed to be solved. Right? We needed to ship more products. We needed to serve our customers through that COVID period effectively. We needed to raise capital. We needed to continue to build out the controls in the company. So there was just so much that needed to get done. So there wasn't a minute to sort of pause and take a breath. It was just the excitement of what we were doing together. But unquestionably, it was a difficult time for everyone, yeah.
And how have you found often I've, in an interview process, it's like, yeah, no, everything's wonderful. And like, come in and the team's great. And we've done really good things. Like, was there any difference in obviously with doing a lot of the interview processes and stepping in remotely and things, was there anything that you found different? I'm not saying did anybody lie to you in the interview process. I'm saying like, was there just anything that was changed or anything that was different? Other than obviously the weather being a bit different when you got here than it was in California.
Yeah, I got oversold on the London weather relative to California.
Yeah, we can only do so much, I'm sorry.
No, so we love London. So that part has actually been the easiest bit because we always love London. I've spent enormous amounts of time in London over the years, and moving here and making this home has just been one of the exciting parts of the personal journey over here. No, but I don't think anybody sort of misrepresented in the interview or any of that. Right? This at the end of it, it wasn't a insider outsider sort of feeling as much as it was being a part of a team that was taking on something incredibly big and daunting, and getting excited about that and sort of rolling up our sleeves and doing it all together.
Yeah. How much of, you sort of talk about the hyper growth, and like you say, if you look at the trajectory of the business, not just from a valuation perspective, but in terms of, customers and everything that's there, you sort of don't always get the opportunity to build for the scale that you turn into. But was that one of the biggest challenges, do you think, in terms of joining? Was I guess going from an amazing startup to a very, you're not really a startup anymore, right? You're a very scaled 9 million customers. There's many people around the UK who you're their primary financial services partner, right?
Yeah.
Like, again, that's a lot of responsibility, but building out all of those processes, those structures, everything that goes with it, how much of that did you see as part of the role? Almost, growing into the scale of the business that you've had the impact for?
For sure. And, this is also about, in some senses, setting the mandate for ourselves as opposed to sort of, just carrying on a journey. So it's also setting the mandate for ourselves. And the mandate is nothing less than building a generational company, right? That's really what we're building out. And when you have an ambition that's as big as that, every step is a step along that journey. So to your point about building our processes or people we hire, right? Building a team, build the products that we're looking to do, that is the true north, right? Building a generational company that is mission oriented and achieves the mission that we've just talked about, but also does it in a way that establishes a way of doing business, the way a company looks on the inside, the way colleagues relate to each other, the values that drive us, the ways in which our mission and our business plan don't compete with each other, right? I mean, early on, we would talk about the fact that I think deeply that a mission without a business plan is a strapline, it's a bumper sticker. Anybody can do that, right? But when you have a lofty mission and you build a business plan, a business model that reinforces that, then you create the virtuous cycle of a business model that's fueling a mission that's fueling the business plan. So these are hard things to do. They're ambitious and hard things to do, and that excites us. And it's always excited me. So when you sort of set your sights on that, and that's what you're building towards, it becomes an easy way to make good long-term decisions. It becomes an easy way to think about who you want to work with, the talent you want to bring onto the company. It becomes an easy way of making every single business decision on that path, because you know what you're never trading that off.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. And I guess as the ambition gets bigger and the types of products and services that you're offering get bigger, then that magnet needs to get stronger and stronger, doesn't it, as well? I mean, not wanting to sound like I'm stalking slightly, but the hires that you've been making in, like say, the pension space, the insurance space, I mean, it points to a much broader roadmap of activity over the next couple of years, right?
For sure.
And that how do you sort of keep that balance of that, build a thing, own a thing, shape a service, but actually be a scaled operation? Is it still, teams of teams of teams of teams and democratization of decision making, or how are you managing that?
For sure. And that's, I'm glad you asked that, right? Because that's the thing that we hold incredibly dear to Monzo, and the thing that we don't take for granted, which is this idea that we want all of our people to feel that sense of mission, that sense of purpose, and the ownership to contribute towards it. So the best ideas come from everywhere in the company, right? Some of, the gambling block that we built and shipped a few years ago, which by the way has 600,000 customers that have turned on the gambling block.
Wow.
That came about because a customer service agent was listening to a customer and saw an opportunity to help them solve a problem for them, right? So ideas will come from everywhere. So that part of our culture, which is about everyone feeling connected to the mission, everyone feeling empowered to come up with ways to further that mission, is crucial to who we are. So those elements of the scrappiness, the passion that goes with being an earlier stage startup style company are core to us. At the same time, right, the exciting thing is that we get to do this not just in a small boutique sort of way, but do it at scale, right? And that comes with some responsibilities. It comes with opportunities, right? The idea that you can scale to millions of customers. We launched rewards last year, right? 1 million customers have already signed up for cashback rewards, right? Investments is on a tear. So the fact that things we build can come with real scale raises the bar on the quality of what we build, but is energizing because the mission is now saying, okay, millions of our customers could use this feature.
Yeah. It's you sort of talk about a little bit about responsibility there as well in terms of those things, and it was the Observer sort of put an article out in 2022 about you're actually amongst a very small minority of non-white UK bank CEOs. Does that feel like a responsibility as well, or is that not something you think about? I don't get a sense that actually it's something that I doubt played any part in your hiring or the recruitment structure or anything that kind of went with it. But is it something you're conscious of?
You know, it's interesting. So I've said this before. I feel lucky that I grew up in a country where everyone was some shade of my color. And so feeling like a person of color was never a part of my identity because everybody around me was.
Sure.
And it's only as an adult when I left India and have lived and worked around the world that awareness has come in that, okay, there's another way to define me that feels different. So, you know, when I took over as CEO at Monzo, on that first day, one of the loveliest notes I got was from a fellow Monzonaut, right, a person of color, who DM'd me saying that they felt excited that Monzo was now, had a CEO who was a person of color, and that their mom and dad would be really happy. And it was a really sort of powerful moment for me because it helped me realize that whatever I see myself as, the fact that someone is relating to me because of my ethnicity or my background or the color of my skin does mean it's a responsibility, does mean that, in whatever ways I possibly can, I should have the impact that takes the world to a better place, a more inclusive place, right? And that means, in whatever I do, but it also means really what Monzo can do. Right? The ways for us to have real impact is that Monzo should be a place that is, welcoming of people of all backgrounds, where people come here with the best of them, can bring the best selves of that they are to work, do the best work of their lives, and have enormous impact on our customers. Our mission statement is making money work for everyone. When that's the mission, our colleagues should reflect the customer base and must have the same sort of, enormous diversity of backgrounds and talents that our customers have. So building Monzo out with that idea is a crucial way that I can actually live up to that responsibility, right? Making sure that we're not just painting by numbers, but actually making it a more inclusive place, actually allowing people to be their best versions, allowing for a way in which we can channel the best of everyone is a huge part of that. And yeah, so it's a responsibility, but it's a responsibility that comes with this enormous opportunity to have impact as well.
It's an interesting one. I mean, did you ever think, 6-year-old TS, like back in junior school, like, did you ever think, I'm going to have this responsibility, I'm going to be the CEO of a bank, and I'm going to have this responsibility it's a funny old world how things turn out, isn't it?
I think that 6-year-old didn't know the meaning of any of those three words, CEO, responsibility, or bank. But yeah, so I grew up in very middle class India. Dad was an Indian Army officer, so we were moving around from one cantonment to another every 2 or 3 years. Mom was a social worker. It was a very idyllic and simple life. And so this version of life feels like nothing that little kid could have envisaged in whatever version of Fantasyland even.
It's amazing, isn't it, when you look back and think, would the 6-year-old, would the 10-year-old version of me be surprised at what I'm doing, and that's always an interesting context, isn't it?
Amazing, yeah, of course it is.
So what's next for Monzo then? I mean, like you say, you seem to be sort of winning on all fronts in terms of customers and satisfaction, and profitability, loads of different things that are there. Where are you sort of aiming? And actually, I mean, it seems like in all directions to a certain degree, which is bringing in good people and letting them do what they do. But where do you want to get to?
Yeah, it's a great question. The speed at which we're moving, if you just look at the last few years and the number of times we've, doubled revenues, continue to add more customers and so on and so forth, the pace of change is so rapid that every year in Monzo years is, feels like, a decade in any other previous life I've lived in. So if I look ahead now, that journey just feels even more energizing. Right, this idea that we're on a rocket ship to build a generational company, right? A generational company that redefines banking, that redefines how customers relate to their money, that redefines the way a company looks on the inside, and in doing so, right, creates a company of enormous value, touches the lives of, as I said, many tens of millions of customers in the future. is the journey. So where do I see us really is a point of, where on that arc of time do you blink and look at a snapshot of Monzo? But that's the journey we're on.
Yeah. And I guess, 5 years, 10 years from now, I mean, it sounds very much like I always say it's not what you do, it's the way that you do it. And sort of that challenger element to your people. It's noticeable talking to people around the business. They all sense a pride to what you're doing. How do you keep that challenger feel a decade from now?
By remaining incredibly ambitious and hungry for what we want to do. Right? At each stage of our success in the last few years, it hasn't been about just looking back and saying, hey, we've come a long way, but it's been about looking ahead at the mission, at the ambition, and being energized about what's to come. And I think if we preserve that ambition, that hunger for our mission, that feeling will never go away. Right? It's when you get complacent, it's when you feel like, oh, we've gotten here. Oh, let's just rest on our laurels. Those are the things that are debilitating. But if you're facing ahead into the future and not in the way of just meeting the future, but actually shaping it, building it, that's the exciting bit, right? Because we get to actually define what a customer's relationship with their money will look like a decade from now. And if I look that far ahead, I think anywhere around the world, there will just be a handful of companies that at real scale engage customers and their money. And we're playing to be one of those companies. So that's the excitement of the journey we're on. And every step along the way will be a series of triumphs and, getting it to the next level and the next level exponentially. But it will really be about looking ahead.
Yeah, that's exciting and, fascinating to see what happens in the next, 3, 5, 10 years. But you'll have to keep coming back and telling us more as the journey continues.
Keep us honest. Thanks, David.
Sounds good. All right. Well, thank you very much for joining us today. And a big thank you to everybody for tuning into this one. Thank you so much for everybody for joining us. TS, for you, if anybody wants to connect or anybody wants to hear more about all the good stuff you're doing at Monzo, where can people learn a little bit more?
Download our app, become a Monzo customer, whether you're an individual or a small business. We're across social media channels. Follow us on social media. We have a website, www.monzo.com. We have a community blog. We're connected, and we'd love to hear more from you as well.
Fantastic. All right. As for me, you can always find me lurking on LinkedIn these days, so just head over there. Thank you so much for listening. If you like what you heard, follow the podcast. Don't forget to leave us a review. It helps us make it better and helps other people find the show as well. As always, if you want to join the conversation, find us on social media. Just search for 11FS or FinTech Insider, or if you really want to, email us on podcasts@11fs.com. Thank you very much for listening, everybody. Goodbye.